they claim that our campaign has been rather silent. You read articles day after day. Where has Ron Paul gone? What is he doing? No, we don't hear anything from him. But guess what? Do we hear and see crowds like this on national television say, our campaign is alive and well and gathering up the delegates and Authorization Act and a provision of it. Whether the national media help you find that problem and identify it, it's never been on national TV. It has essentially never come up in 22 debates for presidency in this campaign. It was mentioned about that much, and I had about 15 seconds to respond to it. Very, very minimally. So, we know we can't depend on what we read and what we hear on television. And I think what is happening is that the establishment politicians, and even those who are in charge of the media, they don't understand how extensive and how energized this revolution to return our liberties really is. So we must continue and never give up, because giving up will not be a good message for America or for liberty. You know, there was a bill passed recently, and they were emphasizing those individuals who are protected by the Secret Service. You know that I did not accept protection from the Secret Service. And I cannot say that I predicted that there would be a scandal in the Secret Service, but it was not hard to predict that government agencies have a tendency to self-destruct, and this is just another example. Think they're very special. They don't think of themselves as average people. So there's a law that the politicians passed that said that anybody who gets within a certain distance of an individual who's protected by the Secret Service can be arrested for demonstrating, even if it's just holding a sign up, and they can get 10 years for that. There's a statistic out that shows that we have 5% of the population of the world, and we have 25% of the world's prisoners. So what does that mean? Does that mean the Americans are bad people, or does it mean that we have way too many nonsensical laws on the books? January 1st of this year, the same day that the National Defense Authorization Act came into effect, there were 40,000 other new laws placed on the American people. I don't think we needed, if there were any of those necessary, I haven't discovered them yet, but I would like to be our first president that would actually eliminate 40,000 laws. There's some that would head the list. To start off with, the president could do that. They can use the executive order, not to pass new legislation. I think it's wrong. It's not authorized for the president to legislate with executive orders. But it would be proper for a constitutional president to use an executive order to repeal the executive orders that did illegal legislation. President signed just a couple weeks ago. There's the Defense Appropriation Act. It has a new name now, but it was an act that was passed in 1950. It essentially gives a president the power to socialize and control all of industry, all finances and all businesses. It's total control. They never invoked it, but I just wonder what's going on, because this time it wasn't passed by the Congress to renew it. It was passed by an executive order. And there were a few changes. The most significant change that was made by the executive branch was it wasn't in times of war that they could execute these powers, but in times of peace as well. Those kind of things are on the books now, and because they're on the books and they're not knocking on our doors and doing things doesn't mean that we should ignore it. Matter of fact, we shouldn't ignore it. We should not be complacent. We should know what's going on. We should know what the Defense Authorization Act really means. Actually authorizes the military to arrest American citizens. That repeals the concept of posse comitatus, but it's not only the arresting of American citizens that's so bad about that. It explicitly says if you're arrested under those conditions, they can prevent you from getting an attorney. Says that you can be put in prison indefinitely in a secret prison. And they call that part of America. If we're going to have a republic, if we're going to have a return of freedom in this country, that stuff needs repealed and taken off the books. It's been the law, because of an executive order, that the president can decide on certain circumstances to assassinate American citizens. We were complaining the other day about the president overstepping his bounds and lecturing the Supreme Court. I'll tell you what, that was rather minor compared to him declaring himself the prosecutor, the judge, and the executioner just on his own. So these kind of changes, of course, they haven't been used that much, just on a few occasions, but it's the precedent that counts. And the argument is, well, these are bad guys, but they've never been charged with anything. They were never given a trial. We don't know that. But precisely if they were bad people, they deserve the trial for our benefit. Was able to be tried. I think that anybody should be able to be tried. What about the war criminals after World War II? They were at least given a trial. I know years later was arrested, taken to Israel, and he was given a trial. But this idea that there's enough power because a so-called bad person is something that has to be reversed. We cannot ignore it. I'm always delighted when the crowds that come out are very numerous and you know about it. So that means this information is not being kept secret. It is out in the open, and that, once again, emphasizes the fact why we have to keep the internet free and that we have access to it. The president hasn't been a friend of civil liberties, although he claimed he would be. The Congress has not been defending our civil liberties. They passed, the law to allow these arrests. But also, this week the Supreme Court had a ruling. It was a 5-4 ruling that said that anyone who has been approached by a police officer can be strip searched without probable cause. So there are a couple things that that symbolically at least, that has to be changed, is one, the symbolism that we see on television and all the pictures of what happens at the airport and the groping of the TSA agents and the x-rays. If we put up with that and not say no more, there's something wrong with us. Liberties have been going on for a long time. They've gotten since 9/11. It was shortly after 9/11. Understandably, we were all very, very concerned about what was happening. But I don't think the analysis was very good. It was considered almost treasonous to suggest that maybe 9/11 had something to do with a phenomenon described by the CIA and the Defense Department, the thing called blowback. Maybe that had something to do with it. Instead of addressing the problems that we have with our foreign policy and see the connection, the attack and the correction has been the attack on the American people. So the first bill that passed after 9/11 was the Patriot Act. So that too should be high on our list for repealing legislation. When that bill was being passed, I remember it clearly because I was sitting on the House floor talking to another member. There weren't very many of us that voted against it. So he was obviously voting for it. I said, why are you voting for this? He says, I said, you probably haven't even read it because it only been out on the floor about an hour or so. He said, oh no, I haven't read it. And I said, you know, it'll probably have a lot of that stuff in it. He said, yeah, I know that too. And I said, why are you going to vote for it? He said, because it's called the Patriot Act. He says, against the Patriot Act under these conditions, what would I tell my people back home? I said, well, that's your job. You go home and explain it to them why you need